All right, welcome to our channel, Section 8 Consulting. I am the owner of section8consulting.com, and today I would like to tell you a story or a battle being waged around the nation. This battle is being waged over vouchers, people trying to rent, how they're getting their income, and the most pervasive form of discrimination by communities that would prefer that anybody that made a low income not come and shop or even live in the same zip code. The same thoughtful and nasty process that played out from the 1930s going forward. And here we are again, waging it out. So I think the two topics we're going to primarily cover, and before we get started, let me introduce you to my secretary. She's had a very tiring morning. That's Lovebug. And as many of you know that have watched many of my videos, I have a lot of cats. I rescue them. I love them and enjoy them immensely. And she's just one of the many herds. I think she's tired because she had kittens to feed this morning. Three new souls in her home. So anyways, let me get back to this. This source of income is going to be the first. And we're going to talk about some of the legal perspective of that and the banning of vouchers. So in principle, we have these uppity communities. And they're so uppity that even I can't get there. And mostly white folks, I would imagine, in these uppity communities. But the point is, they don't want anybody to live or shop there. I just feel like we're winding the clock back to 1920. Do we really? We work so hard as a nation to get through prejudicial issues, racism, and everything. Of course, it still happens, but I'm hoping that the younger children get better. So here we are. Not wanting vouchers. We want to relegate and everybody live behind an iron fence and can't have anybody with a voucher because we're still viewing things that we viewed 80 years ago. That everybody that's got a voucher is going to commit crime and all this other jazz. Look, I deal with 700 to 1,000 clients a year. I've got landlords in every state. I've got landlords that have $40 million properties. And I can tell you that the assertion that what you see on the news about all these horrifying cases of houses being trashed and landlords being burned is absurd. And in fact, we all know the news loves to glamorize the one incident to make for good news. So I think that from a lower perspective, what's happening is anti-discrimination ordinances are playing out around the country. It raises the question of whether the source of income and banning that source of income, and the point being that if your source of income is that voucher, that whether or not that clause is enforceable legally, since it conflicts with most state laws. And also that it bars municipalities from enforcing fair housing laws. So we have states and counties with people living behind the iron gate with chandeliers and champagne that would prefer that they only can have the same color people living behind that in the castle. Only those colored people can be shopping in their little neighborhood. Nobody should ever stop and use their gas station. It's that kind of bullshit in this nation that I cannot stand. So back to that source of income. If you come out with a voucher and you want to get anywhere near these communities of crazy people that all just only want to live in their own little orbit, they'll go down to the city council. And then they'll raise and then try to enforce all these different laws and ordinances. And they're using the excuse of that you can't expand fair housing, which is a federal rule. So the legal perspective, state codes that prohibit local governments from expanding the state fair housing laws, which does not discriminate against renters based on sources of income. Now, the issue at hand, and here's the sad story, okay? And I knew this was going to happen. So we look at the central argument of income-based discrimination. And it might be shocking. We thought it would be a video on YouTube of somebody walking into a crack house and it just so happens the tenant tore up the house. But that's not the argument that's central to the income-based discrimination. It's not an argument of whether a lady is a black female or Hispanic female and she's got 28 children. That's not the central argument that's here. It's the central argument is simply that it simply takes too long to get a housing quality inspection. That is the weakest thing I've ever heard in my life. So the landlords are saying, "Oh, it takes 3 months. I've lost all that money." But yet the housing authorities offer compensation to landlords if the housing quality inspection takes longer. Since I work through HQS, or housing quality inspection, with clients nearly every week of the year, I'm not aware of any housing quality inspections that have ever really taken more than 30 days. In most cases, 5 days. So that is the argument that's been taken up at the legally up to the state, well, not state courts, but when they're holding legislation for the state. And that's the argument amongst the rich people, smoking cigars and having that $400 cognac while they live in their $1 million homes, and they're making these policies and rules to keep everybody out of their zip code. Please don't drive your trashy car. Please don't bring your nasty voucher. We don't want you in the neighborhood. But if you'd like to mow the grass or clean my toilet, we'll let you in. We'll let you in the gate for 30 minutes. It's this kind of shit that really makes my fucking blood boil. So, it's prejudicial. That's what it really is. And then we have these folks sitting around in councils creating fucking ordinances so they can keep the wealthy behind the iron gate and then keep everybody else. Hell, they wouldn't even want me in there. I'm probably not white enough for them. I need to be both qualified, rich and white, and a policy maker. So this kind of shit here. So, I want to talk about the central argument of discrimination. So beyond that, they conduct those new inspections, which are quality inspections to ensure people are not living in shanty houses, shotgun houses. I'm from the state of Louisiana, where you have sugarcane fields, and they still have old shanty houses. A shotgun house is a house where if you shot through the front door, it'd go out the back door because the houses are long and they're white. You see my point? So I know plenty about poverty from a state that's got a lot of it. So the point is, the quality inspections to prevent landlords from being slumlords, graduating to that. Another form to relegate and discriminate against anybody. Doesn't matter the color, that's just the type of landlord they are. So that is the primary argument to create all these secret meetings, to bring it up to state legislator and have a bunch of old white men sit there and create all these fucking laws to keep everybody out. So everybody's got to go live in the trash park, but only they can live behind the iron gate. And so that's what makes my job as a consultant incredibly hard, is because I see it play out, and many of these people look just like me. And they're not just doing it to one culture, they're doing it to everybody. Boy, if you're from Chinatown, if you're from India, whatever, if you don't match the credentials, and you don't have the power to enforce or design these little ordinances while they sit around, again, sipping on champagne at their board fucking meetings, then you end up having to deal with landlords that can simply say, "Oh, well, a voucher's not a real income. You're not going to be allowed in this community." This is the drama I go through all the time. And the more I read now, if anybody thinks this is a pure invention of reality, there are thousands of pages in Google in every city waging war. But let me tell you what the good news is. Many people see it the way I do, on both political sides. They see it as old business. In other words, the way shit's been going in this country forever is starting to come unraveled. Children and kids today are better. They're better at thinking. They're better at being fair. And so I think what's happening now is we're starting to see a turn in the nation. And I think that the question of whether or not these Jim Crow laws almost are going to continue to exist. And in most cases, younger and younger people are getting involved in city ordinances and laws, and they're getting up there and they're starting to change and deny these ridiculous policies that prevent half the nation. And let's talk about, in principle, what low income really is and who is the voucher holder. Most would be shocked to be surprised that over half the vouchers issued in the nation are to white folks that did not carefully plan for retirement, or may not have had a great job to start with, or maybe their husband passed away and they were a housewife. So it is in fact the white community that all this stuff supports mostly. But beyond that, these discriminatory features based strictly on what we've seen on the overblown news is why all this is happening, because everybody only gets a sampling of all the trashy news. I don't even believe the news anymore with half the stuff that goes on, because it's all glamorized. So the point being said, I think that a lot of this is starting to come unraveled. People are starting to fight this league. People have had enough. But most of the people that do accept vouchers are disabled and are seniors. These are not trashy people. They don't have issues where they're tearing everything up. They're not committing crimes. They're not gang members. And so until we learn to educate and expand our mind and quit using examples from the news, which will say any shit they can to make a headline and show the one incident out there, then we're going to continue to live in a different generation of thinking. It's bad policy. It's a bad way to do things. And to be honest with you, one day every single person is going to take their last breath. And a lot of the shit some of you folks are doing out there to design these ordinances, when you take your last breath, you die and go to the same place. Because in the end, we're all just fucking human. I don't care what color you are. You're all just human. And until we learn to have a little bit more respect for humanity, then we're going to continue to deal with issues like this. It's important to be kind and generous and to think and consider other people. You cannot just treat your life experience and being on this planet as an experience where money buys you everything, and if you don't have it, then everybody else is just trash. This is how I see it play out, and I think I've got enough experience to see things for what they really are. Now, you can spin it any fucking way you want, but the reality of it is, that is the flat-out truth. If you can't handle the truth, or you can't handle my profanities, then you're not ready for reality. You're still living on a magical rainbow chasing unicorns. The real world's a bitch. We live in it. We're trying to address it. We're trying to make it fair. But as humans, we love to battle. We'll segregate anybody. Look, let me tell you something. If we didn't have any problems on the planet and we just found one, we'd find another. That's just what humans do. We spend all our time on this rock inside of a little atmosphere, like a goldfish. And what do? We get bored and we create as much misery for the next man as we can. And this is a perfect example of that. There are so many people that need housing, and people just really, really need to look at their moral center when doing this. So I think I've said enough about this. It's a strong issue for me. Anyway, if you're struggling out there and you're dealing with a bad landlord and so on, I would first advise contacting a licensed attorney that's registered in your state. If you can't afford to do so, I cannot legally give out legal advice, but with my career and what I do as a Section 8 consultant, which is no relation to HUD, I work with clients and can connect you with the right resources and so on. So if you're struggling with those type of issues and you need help, reach out to me, and I'll put some information in our description, in our comment section. And I really do hope this country at some point comes to a point where we evolve as humans, because what I'm seeing play out is still terrible. You'd think at 2020 we would not be playing these silly, childish games as if we had just picked up and learned how to use fire and how to cook and sew and everything else. It's like we take 2 steps forward and then we go backwards, and it's just senseless. It's senseless, childish, kindergartenish behavior, and relegated to the rich and the wealthy and those that have the power to make other people miserable. I've enjoyed talking with y'all today, and I hope to see y'all again. And I can assure you, probably our next video will be a little bit less fire and brimstone, but I think I had to get it out of me today. All right, thank you. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.